Here are the top stories for today, March 5, 2020. PNP Chief Archie Gamboa and several others are injured in a helicopter crash in San Pedro, Laguna. Malacanang urges the public to report the activities of corrupt government officials and employees. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano challenges Congressman Lord Alan Velasco to retain the committee chairmanships when he takes the speakership. And the first Filipino who tested positive for COVID-19 in Singapore is discharged after a week of recovery. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. A helicopter carrying PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa and several ranking police officials crashed in San Pedro, Laguna on Thursday morning. Aside from Gamboa, on board the helicopter heading towards Camp Vicente Lim in Calamba were PNP spokesperson Brigadier General Bernard Banac, Director for Controllership Major General Jovic Ramos, and Director for Intelligence Major General Mariel Magaway, among others. Reports showed that the accident was caused by the helicopter getting in contact with a high-tension wire due to poor visibility. Gamboa and 5 other injured police officials were transferred to St. Luke's Medical Center in Taguig City at around 10 a.m. However, 2 police generals were transferred to the Asian Hospital in Muntinlupa City and are now in critical condition. Meanwhile, Malacanang welcomed the news that Gamboa is now in stable condition. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said the palace is monitoring the developments following the crash and praying for the swift recovery of Gamboa and his companions. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar also sent his well wishes to Gamboa and other passengers. The Department of Finance on Wednesday pushed anew for the easing of bank secrecy after 2 suspected syndicates are said to have brought into the Philippines around $370 million, equivalent to 18.7 billion pesos in foreign dirty money. Republic Act 1405, or the Law on Secrecy of Bank Deposits, prohibits the disclosure or inquiry into deposits with any banking institution. The law states that all deposits with banks in the country are confidential and may not be examined or looked into by any person, government, official, Bureau of Office, unless the depositor gives permission or a competent court orders the disclosure. DOF Assistant Secretary Antonio Lambino II said the agency would ask Congress to lift bank secrecy in an effort to improve the government's fight against crimes such as money laundering.
We would like to maybe propose that again, no? That we lift absolute bank secrecy in the Philippines in cases of tax fraud or other nefarious activities, para po matrace po talaga natin, kung meron po tayong hinala na malakas, mabuksan po natin ang mga bank accounts.
The Chinese embassy in Manila described as isolated incidents, illegal and criminal cases involving its nationals in the Philippines. In a statement, the embassy said the Chinese government attaches great importance to combating all kinds of illegal and criminal activities and has been in close cooperation with relevant agencies in the country. It says individual illegal and criminal cases involving Chinese citizens are only isolated incidents and cannot represent the whole picture of China-Philippines relations. The statement came in the wake of reports that Chinese nationals are allegedly associated with money laundering, prostitution, kidnapping, and even bribing of Philippine authorities in the country. Malacanang on Wednesday encouraged the public to report the anomalous activities of erring officials and employees in the government. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo made the call after a global poll found that bribery and corruption are on the rise in the Philippines in the last 2 years. A study conducted by PwC or PricewaterhouseCoopers revealed that 43% of business companies said they experienced fraud at least twice, while a 10th encountered such incidents over 6 to 12 times. Around 42% of companies in the Philippines have complained about being compelled to pay grease money, making them suffer losses between 5 to 50 million US dollars since 2018. PwC interviewed a total of 101 business firms, which involved a balanced mix of local and multinational firms. Panelo said businessmen are to blame because they failed to lodge a formal complaint. He then urged the victims of corruption to speak out. The GMRC bill is now ratified in the Senate, and police seeks an increase on the number of personnel who maintain a normal body mass index. More on this from Teresa Montemayor.
The Senate on Wednesday ratified the bill institutionalizing good manners and right conduct, or GMRC, and values education as core subjects in the K-12 curriculum, both in private and public institutions. The GMRC and Values Education Act is the reconciled version of the Senate Bill No. 1224 and House Bill No. 5829. Under the measure, GMRC and Values Education will replace the current Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao subject. GMRC will be taught as a separate subject from grades 1 to 6 and integrated into the daily learning activities of kindergarten students. On the other hand, Values Education will also be taught as a regular subject from grades 7 to 10 and integrated into current subjects in grades 11 to 12. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police noted an 11% increase in the number of police officers who complied with the policy on maintaining a normal body index, or BMI. As of February 2020, a total of 108,876 police officers have achieved a normal BMI compared to 98,093 in November 2019. In other news, the Department of Labor and Employment on Wednesday said there is no massive loss of employment of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, amid the COVID-19 threat. Bello said there are isolated cases where some OFWs became unemployed after their employers have relocated. He said the government is ready to help workers who would like to return home and avail of assistance. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Still to come, House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano challenges Congressman Lord Alan Velasco to retain the committee chairmanships when he takes the speakership. The Department of Agriculture renews calls for hog traders to stop selling pigs infected with African swine fever. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Going back to even beyond our birth as a nation. And since the fall of a dictatorship in 1986 with the EDSA revolution that I mentioned, that free press has been alive and active. And every administration since then has been subject to all kinds of attacks. This is normal politics. It happens here in Switzerland. The government being criticized for its reactions to NCOV, not taking the right. So this is normal politics, and you should not read more than that into it. Please keep this in context, right? We have an open and free press. We have a government that does not suppress media and is in fact going out of its way to protect media, and that all actions of government are within the bounds of law.
Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano on Wednesday challenged Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco to issue a categorical statement that he will not change the standing committee chairmanships at the House of Representatives once he assumes the top post in the chamber. Cayetano said it was part of the term-sharing deal to keep the committee chairpersons and other leadership posts amid the change in the speakership. Cayetano earlier bared that Velasco had already been offering chairmanships and funding allocations for congressmen in an alleged attempted coup. He also made good of his warning to remove committee chairmen who have been plotting to sabotage the budget to push forward their preferred speaker. The majority leadership shakeup led to the removal of Davao City Representative Isidro Ungab as House Appropriations Committee chairperson and Oriental Mindoro Representative Salvador Leachon as chairman of the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Cavite Representative Elpidio Barzaga claimed Cayetano lost his trust and confidence in Ungab following reports that congressmen are restive over a budget department circular that classifies funds for lawmakers' projects for later release and subject to certain conditions. Meanwhile, Leachon argued that the self-created scenario of an alleged House coup would only provide Cayetano a reason not to honor his term-sharing agreement with Velasco as brokered by President Duterte in July 2019. The term-sharing deal allows Cayetano to serve until October 2020 and let Velasco take over and assume the speakership until 2022. Velasco has dismissed as baseless the supposed coup plan to change the speakership at the House. President Rodrigo Duterte would not be swayed by anyone to overturn his decision to revoke the Visiting Forces Agreement between the Philippines and the United States. On Tuesday, Duterte said the U.S. is trying to make amends with his administration following the termination of the military pact. Duterte's pronouncement came after he met with U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said Duterte's position remains unchanged despite supposed efforts by Washington to save VFA. He said it was natural for the U.S. to seek a dialogue with the Philippines because the revocation of VFA puts Washington at a disadvantage. The average price of regular milled rice has slid to its lowest since 2013 after the implementation of the rice tariffication law. The average retail price of regular milled rice has gone down to 36 pesos and 33 centavos per kilo in January 2020, which is 4.40 pesos lower compared to the same month of last year. NEDA Assistant Secretary Mercy Sombilia said more provinces are now selling rice at 24 to 36 pesos per kilo, which is significantly lower compared to last year's 37 to 44 pesos per kilo. Prices of NFA rice also dropped to as low as 27 pesos per kilo. However, Agriculture Secretary William Dar said the law which created the Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund has helped enhance farmers' productivity and competitiveness through mechanization, seed distribution, and credit extension services. As of February 21st, Dar said more than 156,000 pesos rice farmers have received 15,000 worth of loan assistance per farmer with zero interest and is payable in 8 years. Dar also denied the Federation of Free Farmers' claims that farmers incurred losses amounting to 68 billion pesos during the law's first year of implementation in 2019. He said there were several government efforts in place to assist farmers, such as the 2.5 billion peso Survival and Recovery Assistance Aid, the 3 billion pesos Unconditional Cash Assistance, and the 10 billion pesos RCEF. In our business news, as more cases of African swine fever were seen in Camarines Sur, Agriculture Secretary William Dar on Wednesday appealed to hog raisers anew to stop selling and transporting pork and pork products infected with the animal-borne disease. In a press briefing in Malacanang, Dar said the 1.85% of the 12.8 million hog inventory were already culled, but the key to stopping the spread of the disease lies in cooperation from hog raisers. He said there were reports that some hog traders continue to sell sick pigs and transport them using their private vehicles. Dar said hog raisers should follow the example of traders in Rodriguez Rizal, which is now ASF-free despite being the ground zero of the disease. Said it would be best to refrain from selling hogs, pork, and pork products until such time that disease is contained. About 70 million pesos worth of funds and livelihood projects have been given to Rodriguez Rizal to raise native chickens, goats, cows, among other animals. The Western Mindanao Command is checking the veracity that the Abu Sayyaf group has demanded 5 million pesos ransom in exchange for the release of the physician they seized in Jolo, Sulu. West Mincom Chief Cirilito Sobejana reiterated Wednesday the government's no ransom policy in addressing the abduction of Dr. Daniel Moreno by the ASG. The bandits took Moreno on February 4 from his clinic in Barangay Walled City, Jolo. He said Moreno was taken by the group of ASG sub-leader Hatib Hadjan Sawadjaan, emir of the Islamic State for Iraq and Syria in the Philippines, who is believed to be coddling foreign terrorists in Sulu. Sobejana said, based on their assessment, the bandits took Moreno primarily to treat Sawadjaan, who is suffering from tuberculosis. Meanwhile, Sobejana said the operations to rescue Moreno, including the 5 Indonesian fishermen, will continue in Sulu. The ASG bandits kidnapped the 5 Indonesian fishermen last January 18 near the coast of Malaysia. A drug suspect arrested in a buy-bust operation in 2010 was arrested again for the same offense in Maguindanao. A former drug detainee is also arrested in a buy-bust operation in Coronadal City. More on this and other news from the provinces from Benj Bondoc.
Anti-narcotics agents caught in a drug bust in Parang, Maguindanao are recidivist and seized from him some 136,000 pesos worth of shabu on Wednesday morning. The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency identified the suspect as Arsad Kasim of Parang, Maguindanao. Kasim was caught by PDEA agents for the same offense in Cotabato City on July 3, 2010. In General Santos City, anti-drug operatives arrested 5 drug personalities and seized nearly 75,000 pesos worth of suspected shabu in a raid on an alleged drug den early Wednesday. The entrapment by PDEA 12 and the City Police Office targeted suspected pusher Kevin Mondejar of Barangay San Isidro. Also arrested were apartment unit boarder Andre Allen Barriatos and the alleged visitors of the den identified as Davis Calcis, Aaron Kausing, and Revin Arki Mondejar. Kevin and Revin Mondejar, who are reportedly cousins, are included on PDEA's target list and subjected to a series of surveillance activities prior to the operation. Meanwhile, police arrested a former drug detainee from Sultan Kudarat province in a buy-bust operation in Coronadal City on Tuesday evening. Suspect Jobert Taclubos was nabbed after allegedly selling a sachet of suspected shabu worth 500 pesos to an undercover policeman. Also seized from Taclubos were 5 large plastic packs of suspected shabu with an estimated street value of 47,600 pesos. The suspect, believed to be connected to a local illegal drug network, is considered as a newly identified drug personality in the city. Taclubos was nabbed and detained for the same offense in Isulan, Sultan Kudarat last year, but was released after posting bail. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondoc.
Up next, the first Filipino who tested positive for COVID-19 in Singapore is discharged after a week of recovery. The DOH says there will be no COVID-related travel ban to Iran, Japan, and Singapore. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Abaca the alphabet alliteration, Abaca accessories for admiration, bamboo's bumping, barefoot bounding, kinetic Cali combat, boom boom powering, digitally documenting, diving in the deep, beating everywhere, even on the street, galleries, graffiti and counts for the gram, hand-weaving heritage with hometown hands, island fortresses, illuminated lands, lakeside living with locals and lilies, mountain rides made with the Ifugao markings, nocturnal nightlife, neon navigating, that means keep on smiling. Oratories, officers, old world magic, bullets and prints from pineapple fabric, Rondalia rhythms, riffing on raps, sunset street dancing, Sampaguita craft, tribal tattoos in traditional ways, ultimate underground untouched caves, wild, wide, warm, welcomes await for you, and yes, you too. Be part of the tradition, the celebration, and the culture. Be part of the fun.
The first Filipino COVID-19 case in Singapore has recovered. Back home, no new COVID-19 cases have been reported for the past 4 weeks. More on this from Janice Cabe.
The first Filipino who tested positive for coronavirus disease 2019 in Singapore has been discharged after recovering last week. The Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed on Wednesday that the Filipino has been given a clean bill of health and was discharged from the hospital on February 28. The agency also reported 2 new cases of Filipino COVID-19 patients in the city-state, which were recorded between Saturday and Monday. The second Filipino was confirmed to have contracted the disease on February 29, while the third case was announced on March 2. Meanwhile, the Philippines has not recorded instances of local transmission and new cases of COVID-19 for 4 weeks. Latest data from the agency's tracker showed that there are only 37 patients under investigation admitted in different health facilities nationwide, while 629 PUIs have been discharged for testing negative for COVID-19. To stop the spread of fake news about new cases of the disease in the country, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III urged the public to avoid sharing social media posts from unverified sources. He also encouraged the public to practice proper cough etiquette and hand washing. Meanwhile, the Department of Labor and Employment is preparing to reposition some of its financial programs to sectors that might be affected by the COVID-19 scare. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III said he will ask the Office of the President to release some 2 billion pesos through the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Displaced Workers Program and Government Internship Program. Bello said that a policy to link workers to the Training for Work program of the TESDA shall also be adopted. Undersecretary Ana Dione urged companies to adopt flexible work arrangements as a better alternative than the outright termination of the services of the employees or the total closure of the establishment. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cabe.
The Department of Tourism is allocating about 6 billion pesos to spur Philippine tourism amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat said on Wednesday the amount will cover international and domestic promotions, infrastructure, as well as regional tourism development. The funding is part of the measures the government has put in place to mitigate the economic impact of the looming pandemic to the tourism sector. Meanwhile, Romulo Puyat said it remains safe to travel around the Philippines, highlighting the fact that it does not have any local transmissions of the disease. Romulo Puyat also confirmed on Wednesday that President Rodrigo Duterte is visiting Boracay on March 12 to join efforts in lifting the public's mood to travel around the Philippines. Aside from promotions, the chief executive will also inspect what has been done on the island since it was rehabilitated. Boracay's arrival suffered from the various travel bans imposed by the government to contain the COVID-19. On the island, the occupancy rate is down by 40%. The Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases has not decided to include Iran, Japan, and Singapore on the list of countries under the travel ban. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III on Wednesday said, while Iran has the highest case fatality rate at 7.3% compared to China's case fatality rate at less than 4%. Duque added the DOH would be doing a day-to-day assessment of the situation, so the travel restrictions on certain countries may change. Meanwhile, Filipino tourists and those holding Umrah visas are covered by Saudi Arabia's temporary travel ban. In an advisory dated March 4, the Department of Foreign Affairs said the issuance of entry visas to Saudi Arabia for the purpose of Umrah and travel to Prophet's Mosque in Medina, as well as the issuance of tourist visas, are suspended indefinitely. Meantime, Filipinos with work visas and those on a business visit may still enter Saudi Arabia. Any Filipino en route to Saudi Arabia who may encounter any issues or problems regarding the travel restriction is advised to contact the Philippine Embassy in Riyadh or the Philippine Consulate General in Jeddah. More people have visited Intramuros despite the expected slowdown on arrivals due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Intramuros Administration Chief Guillermo Asido on Tuesday said visitors are increasing due to promotions and the opening of new sites. In Fort Santiago alone, he said the foot traffic reached 10,000 daily since last month compared to the 400 to 500 visitors in the same period in 2019. Intramuros last year has attracted a total of 3.7 million visitors. The IA has launched several initiatives in 2019 to boost the number of visitors, from partnering with Manila Hotel for exclusive tours, as well as introducing an augmented reality app that allows users to indulge in a 3D experience inside the walled city. Intramuros has also positioned itself as a prime Lenten destination within Metro Manila when it opened 9 historical churches and chapels for pilgrims last year. In celebration of the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Manila, an exhibit in Intramuros showcased rare photographs of Manila from the Second World War. The photos also show the solidarity and heroism of Filipino and American soldiers. Laid Kabagani has this report.
Some iconic and never-before-seen photos of the Philippines and the events during World War II are on display at Fort Santiago in Intramuros for the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Manila. Titled Allies for Freedom, the United States Embassy-funded exhibit features photos mostly taken by U.S. Army photographers when the Japanese Imperial Forces attacked Luzon in 1941. Intramuros Administration Chief Guillier Acito said this is the first time for such initiative to be held at the historic American barracks ruins inside the walled city. He said, "It is the perfect spot to focus on the heroism and resiliency of Filipino and American soldiers during the Second World War." U.S. Embassy Deputy Chief of Mission John Law underscored the exhibit's importance as proof of Manila and Washington's bonds. The exhibit was curated by Marian Smith with photographs taken from the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration, AP Images, Getty Images, and the International Center of Photography. A portion of it reflected bayanihan or community spirit even among American soldiers seen guiding civilians to safety and assisting the wounded held captive by the Japanese. The photos, which date back as far as the liberation, also give a glimpse of how two countries built a long-standing alliance based on solidarity established during the period. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Laid Kabagani.
Here's another look at today's biggest stories. PNP Chief Archie Gamboa and several others are injured in a helicopter crash in San Pedro, Laguna. Malacanang urges the public to report the activities of corrupt government officials and employees. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano challenges Congressman Lord Alan Velasco to retain the committee chairmanships when he takes the speakership. And the first Filipino who tested positive for COVID-19 in Singapore is discharged after a week of recovery. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day.